morning. So, let's give it my honey in the water. Hamlin towns in Brunswick, my famous Hanover city. The river Weser, deep and wide, washes its wall on the southern side. A pleasanter spot you've never spied. But when begins my ditty, almost 500 years ago, to see the townsfolk suffer so from vermin was a pity. Rats, they fought the dogs and killed the cats, and bit the babies in the cradles, and ate the cheeses from the vats, and licked the soup from the cook's own ladles, split open the kegs with salted sprats, made nests in the men's Sunday hats, and even spoiled the women's chats by drowning out their speaking with shrieking and squeaking in 50 different sharps and flats. At last the people in a body to the town hall came flocking. "'Tis clear," cried they, "our mayor is a naughty, and as for our corporation, shocking, to think we buy gowns lined with ermine, where dolts who canter won't determine what's best to rid us of our vermin. You hope because you're old and obese to find in furry civic robes ease. Rouse up, sirs, give your brains a racking, to find the remedy we are lacking, or sure as fate will send you packing." At this, the mayor and corporation quaked with a mighty consternation. An hour they sat in council. At length the mayor broke silence. "For a gilder eyed my ermine gown sell. I wish I were a mile hence. It's easy to bid one rack one's brain. I'm sure my poor head aches again. I scratch it so, but all in vain. Oh, for a trap, a trap, a trap." Just he said this, what he tap at the chamber door, but a gentle tap. "Bless us," cried the mayor, "what's that?" With the corporation as he sat, looking little through wondrous fat. Nor brighter were his eyes, nor moister than a too long opened oyster, save when at noon his paunch grew mutinous, for a plate of turtle green and glutinous. Only a scraping of shoes on a mat, anything like the sound of a rat makes my heart go pit-a-pat. "Come in," cried the mayor, looking bigger, and in did come the strangest figure. His long, queer coat from heel to head was half yellow and half red, and he himself was tall and thin, with sharp blue eyes, each like a pin, and light loose hair and swarthy skin, nor tuft of hair on cheek, nor beard on chin, but lips where a smile went out and in. There was no guessing his kith or kin, and nobody could enough admire this tall man in his quaint attire. Quoth one, "It's as my great-grandsire, starting up at the trump of doom's tone, had walked this way from his painted tombstone." He advanced towards the council table, and "Please, your honor," said he, "I am able, by means of secret charm to draw, all the creatures living beneath the sun, they crawl or swim or fly or run, after me so as you never saw. And I chiefly use my charm on creatures that do people harm, the mole and toad and newt and viper, and people call me the Pied Piper." And here they noticed round his neck a scarf of red and yellow stripe, to match with his coat of self-same check, and that scarf's end hung a pipe, and his fingers they noticed were ever straying, as if impatient to be playing upon this pipe, as low it dangled over his vesture so old-fangled. "Yes," said he, "Pied Piper as I am, in Tartary I fred the cam, last June from his huge swarms of gnats. I ease in Asia than I am of a monstrous brood of vampire bats. And as for what your brain bewilders, if I rid your town of rats, will you give me 1,000 guilders?" 50,000 was the exclamation of an astonished mayor and corporation. Into the street the piper stepped, smiling first a little smile, as if he knew what magic slept in his quiet pipe the while. Like a musical adept to blow his pipe, his lips he wrinkled, and green and blue his sharp eyes twinkled, like a candle flame where salt is sprinkled. And ere 3 shrill notes the pipe uttered, you heard as if an army muttered, and the muttering grew to a grumbling, and the grumbling grew to a mighty rumbling, and out of the houses came the rats tumbling, great rats, small rats, lean rats, brawny rats, brown rats, black rats, grey rats, tawny rats, grave old plotters, gay young friskers, fathers, mothers, uncles, cousins, cocking tails and pricking whiskers, families by tens and dozens, brothers, sisters, husbands, wives, followed the Pied Piper for their lives. From street to street he piped advancing, and step for step they followed dancing, until they came to the river Weser, wherein all plunged and perished. save one whose stout as Julius Caesar, swam across and lived to carry, as he the manuscript he cherished, to Ratland home his commentary, which was, at first shrill notes of the pipe, I heard a sound as of scraping tripe, and putting apples wondrous right into the cider presses bright, and moving away of pickled up boards, and leaving a jar of conserve cupboards, and joining the corks of train oil flasks, and breaking loops of butter casks. It seemed as if a voice sweeter far than by harp or by solar breathed called out, "Oh, rats, rejoice! The world is grown to a vast bright saltery. So munch on, crunch on, take your lunch on, breakfast, supper, dinner, lunch on, and just a bulky sugar punch on, already staved like a great sun shone. Gracious, scarce an inch before me, just methought it said, come bore me. I found the Wester rolling over me. You should have heard the Hamlin people ring the bells so they rock the steeple. Go, cried the mayor, get long poles, poke out the nests and block up the holes, consult with carpenters and builders, and leave in our town not even a trace of the rats. When suddenly up the face the piper perked in the marketplace. The first, if you please, my 1,000 guilders. 1,000 guilders. The mayor looked blue, so did the corporation too. For council dinners made rare havoc with curry, sal, vin de gras, hawk, and half the money would replenish their cellar's biggest butt of Rhenish, to pay this sum to a wondering fellow, with gypsy coat red and yellow. Besides, quoth Mayor with a knowing wink, our business is done at the river's brink. We saw with our eyes the vermin sink, and what's dead can't come to life, I think. So, friend, we're not folks to shrink from our duty of giving you something to drink, and a matter of money to put in your poke. But as for the guilders, what we spoke of them, as you well know, wasn't joke. Besides, our losses have made us thrifty. 1,000 guilders, come take 50. The piper's face fell, and he cried, no trifling, I can't wait beside. I promise a visit by dinner time, Baghdad, and accept the prime of the head cook's potage. All he's rich in, for having left in the caliph's kitchen. Of a nest of scorpions, no survivor. With him I prove no bargain driver. With you don't think I'll bait a stiver. And folks put me in a passion, they find me pipe after another fashion. How, cried the mayor, do you think I brook, being worse treated than a cook, insulted by a ribald, with idle pipe and vesture piebald? Threaten us, fellow, do your worst, blow your pipe there till you burst. Once more he stepped into the street, and to his lips again laid his long pipe of smooth straight cane. And ere he blew 3 notes, such sweet soft notes that musicians cunning never gave the enraptured air. There was a rustling, it seemed like the bustling, a merry crowd justling, a pitching and hustling. Small feet were pattering, wooden shoes clattering, little hands clapping, and little tongues chattering. Like foals in the farmyard and barley is scattering, out came the children running, all the little boys and girls, with rosy cheeks and flax and curls, and sparkling eyes and teeth like pearls, tripping and skipping ran merrily after. The wonderful music was shouting and laughter. The mayor was dumb, and the council stood as if they're changed into blocks of wood, unable to move a step or cry, to the children merrily skipping by, could only follow with an eye the joyous crowd at the piper's back, and how the mayor was on the rack, and the wretched council's bosoms beat as the piper turned from the high street to where the Wester rolled its waters, right the way of their sons and daughters. However, he moved him south to west into Poppenberg Calif's steps addressed, and after him the children pressed. Great was the joy in every breast. He never crossed the mighty top. He's forced to let the piping drop, and we shall see our children stop. When lo, they reached the mountainside, a wondrous portal opened wide, as if a cavern was suddenly hollowed. The piper advanced, and the children followed. And when all were in to the very last, the door in the mountainside shut fast. Did I say all? No, one was laid, and could not dance the whole of the way. Then in after years, if you would blame his sadness, he was used to say, is dull in our towns to my playmates left. I can't forget that I'm bereft of all the pleasant sights they see, which the piper also promised me. For he led us, he said, to a joyous land, joining the town in just at hand, where waters gushed and fruit trees grew, and flowers of forth a fairer hue, and everything was strange and new. The sparrow is better than peacock here, and our dogs outran our fellow deer, and honeybees are lost for stings, and horses were born with eagle's wings. And just as I became assured, my lame folk be speedily cured. The music stopped, and I stood still, found myself outside the hill, left behind against my will, to go now limping as before, and never hear of that country more. Alas, alas for Hamlin, there came to many a burgher's pate a text which says at heaven's gate, hopes the rich as easy rate, as a needle's eye takes a camel in. The mayor sent east, west, north, and south to offer the piper by word of mouth, wherever was men's lot to find him, silver and gold to his heart's content, if only he'd return the way he went, and bring the children behind him. But when they saw his lost endeavor, and piper and dancers were gone forever, they made a decree that lawyers never should think their records dated duly, if after the day of the month and year, these words do not as well appear. And so long after what happened here, on the 22nd of July, 1376, and a better memory affixed, the place of the children's last retreat, they called it the Pied Piper Street, where anyone playing pipe or tabor was sure for his future lose his labor, nor suffered they hostler tavern, shocked his words so solemn, and opposite the place of the cavern, they wrote the story on a column, and on great church window painted, the same to make the world acquainted, how their children were stolen away, and there it stands this very day. And I must not admit to say, in Transylvania there is a tribe of alien people who ascribe the way and dress of which their neighbors lay such stress to their fathers and mothers having risen out of some subterranean prison, into which they were trepanned a long time ago in a mighty band, out of Hamlin towns and Brunswick land. But how or why they don't understand. So, Lily, let me and you be wipers, scores out with all men, especially pipers. And if they should pipe us free from rats and from mice, if we promise them aught, let us keep our promise. There once was a young man named Roland Pied who played the recorder when he wasn't baking bagels. One day he was walking through a park and playing his recorder to rest a while from all his baking, when suddenly he spied a corpse lying on the ground beneath a swarm of flies. He put down his recorder, walked over to the corpse, shooed the flies away, and covered the dead man with stones. Returning to his oven later that day, he found that his oven blade had gone on by itself and already baked half the bagels he needed. From that day on, Roland Pied was the happiest baker alive. He would bake until he was tired, then he'd pull his recorder out while his oven blade went on by itself. But Roland Pied lived in a town whose mayor did not admire his skill and was jealous of his fame. So the mayor devised a plan to rid the town of Roland. In the beginning, he said that Roland was a good worker, but lazy. Next he said that Roland baked a whole lot, but badly. Then he accused Roland of being a sorcerer, and the people turned on him. Roland Pied therefore took his recorder and left his town behind. When Roland Pied came to a neighboring town, he went to all the business owners, but none of them would give him any work. Finally, he met an old busker and asked him for work to keep body and mind together. "Come along with me," said the old man, "and we will share alms together." So Roland Pied and the old man started going around and singing, "Baker, why do you bear those silent things? Baker, how did you forget to stand where your feet are? Baker, no woman loves your wealth, although it is golden and good for her health. Baker, you are too dirty for a lover to wish to preen. Your limbs are the knots and cords of an old-fashioned machine. Baker, line the rings and bash the boards. You don't need their applause for a thing that is yours. You are a baker and are what you are, not by a miracle, but by the work of your arms. Baker, stand where your feet are. Everybody gave alms to the old man, but to Roland they said, what is a young man like you out begging? Why don't you work for a living? Nobody will hire me, replied Roland Pye. That's what you say. There is a king with so many hungry soldiers that he'll pay good wages to anyone willing to feed them. So Roland Pye went to the king's kitchen and took the old man whose alms he'd been sharing. The oven had never been used by anyone. Roland Pye mixed the dough, then he rolled it into rings. Then he boiled them, dressed them with seeds. Then he baked them until they were golden brown. Then he tossed them into a crate to cool down. Whenever Roland wearied of baking, he would play his recorder. And once he was weary of playing his recorder, he would sing. Baker, why do you bear those silent things? Baker, how did you forget to stand where your feet are? Baker, no woman loves your wealth, although it is golden and good for her health. Baker, you are too dirty for a lover to wish to preen. Your limbs are the knots and cords of an old-fashioned machine. Baker, line the rings and bash the boards. You don't need their applause for a thing that is yours. You are a baker and are what you are, not by a miracle, but by the work of your arms. Baker, be who you are. Hearing the singing, a princess looked out the window. She saw Roland Pye and fell in love with him. But she was a princess and he a baker. The king would never consent to their marriage. So they decided to run away together. They fled at night in a boat when they were already on the high seas. Roland Pye remembered the busker. He said to his beloved, we must fetch the old man. Since he shared his alms with me, we can't go off and leave him like that. At that very moment, the old man came up behind the boat, walking on the water as though it had been dry land. Reaching the boat, he said, we agreed to divide everything we had, and I shared everything I owned. Now you have the king's daughter, and must give half of her to me. At this he gave Roland Pye the knife to cut his bride in two. Roland Pye took the knife with a trembling hand. You are right, he said. You are perfectly right. He was on the point of cutting his bride in half when suddenly the old man stopped him. Stop! I knew you were a just man. I am the dead man, mind you, whom you covered with stones. Go now, and may the two of you always be happy. The old man walked away on the waves. The boat came to an island rich in all good things, with a princely palace awaiting the newlyweds. My first thought was he lied on every word, that hoary cripple with malicious eye, askance to watch the working of his lie on mine, and most scarce able to afford suppression of the glee that pursed and scored its edge at one more victim gained thereby. What else should he be set for with his staff? What saved wailing with his lies and snare? All travelers might find him posted there. And asked the road, I guessed what skull-like laugh would break, what crutch can write my epitaph or pastime on a dusty thoroughfare. If at his counsel I should turn aside into ominous track which all agree hides the dark tower, yet acquiescently I did turn as he pointed, neither pride nor hope for kindling at the end descried, so much as gladness some end might be. For what with my whole world wide wondering, what with my search drawn out through years, my hope dwindled into a ghost not fit to cope with that obstreperous joy success would bring. I hardly tried now to rebuke the spring my heart made, finding failure in its scope. As a sick man very near to death seems dead indeed, and feels begin and end the tears, and takes a farewell of each friend, and hears one bid the other go, draw breath freely outside, since all is over, he saith, and the blow fallen no grieving can amend. While some discuss if near the grave be room enough for this, and when a day suits best for carrying the corpse away, with care about banners, scarfs, and staves, and still the man hears all and only craves, he may not shame such tender love and stay. Thus I had for so long suffered in this quest, heard failure prophesied so oft be writ, so many times among the band to wit, the knights who true dark tower search addressed their steps, the gist to fail as they seem best, and all doubt was now should I be fit. So quiet as despair I turned from him, that hateful cripple, out of his highway into the path he pointed. All the day had been a dreary one at best, and dim was settling into its close, yet shot one grim red leer to see the plain catch the spray. For mark, no sooner was I fairly found, pledged the plain after pace or two, then pausing throw backward a last view, over the safe road 'twas gone, grey plain all round, nothing but plain to the horizon's bound. I must go on, naught else remained to do. So on I went. I think I never saw such starved ignoble nature. Nothing throve, for flowers as well expect a cedar grove, but chortle and spurge according to their law might propagate their kind with none do awe. You'd think a burr had been a treasure trove. No penry, inertness, and grimace, in some strange sort were the land's portion. See or close your eyes, said nature peevishly. If nothing skills, I can't help my case. 'Tis last judgment fire must cure this place. Califine its claws and set my prisoners free. If there pushed any ragged thistle stalk above its mates, its head was chopped. The bents were jealous else. What made the holes and rents in the dock's harsh swarth leaves? Bruises to balk all hope of greenness. 'Tis a brute must walk, passing their life out the brute's intents. As for the grass, it grew as scarce as hair in leprosy. Thin dry blade pricked in mud, which underneath looked kneaded up with blood. One stiff blind horse, as every bone astare, stood stupefied however he came there, thrust out past service from the devil's stud. Alive, he might be dead for aught I know, with red gaunt and calloped neck astrain, and shut eyes beneath the rusty mane. Seldom went such grotesqueness with such woe. I never saw a brute I hated so. He must have been wicked to deserve such pain. I shut my eyes and turned them on my heart, as a man calls for wine before he fights. I asked one draught of earlier, happier sights. Ere fitly I could hope to play the part. Think first, fight afterward, the soldier's art. One taste of old times sets all to rights. Not it. I fancied Cuthbert's reddening face beneath its garniture of curly gold. Dear fellow, till I almost felt him fold an arm and mind to fix me to that place, that way he used. Alas, one night's disgrace, oh, at my heart's fire left it cold. Giles, then, the soul of honor, there he stands, frank as 10 years ago, and knighted first. An honest man should dare, he said he durst. Good with the scene shifts, faw what hangman's hand pinned to his breast the parchment. His own band reads it. Poor traitor, spit upon and cursed. Better this present than a past like that. Back therefore to my darkening path. No sound of sight as far as the eye can strain. Will the nights in a howling or a bat, I asked, when something on the dismal flat came to arrest my thoughts and change their train. A sudden little river crossed my path, as unexpected as a serpent came, no tides congenial to the glooms. This as it frothed by might have been a bath in fiends glowing hoop to see the wrath of its black eddies be spat with flakes and spoons. So petty yet so spiteful, all along low scrubby alders kneeled over it, drenched willows flung them headlong in a fit of rout despair, a suicidal throng, the river which had done them all the wrong, whatever that was, rolled by, deterred no whit. Which while I forded, good saints, how I feared to set my foot upon a dead man's cheek, each step to feel the spear I thrust to seek, hollows tangled in his hair or beard. It may have been a water rat I speared, but ugh, it sounded like a baby's shriek. Glad was I to reach the other bank, now for a better country. Vain presage, who were the strugglers? What war did they wage? Whose savage trample could thus pad the dank soil to a plash? Toads in a poison tank, or wild cats in a red-hot cage. The fight must so have seemed in that foul surf. What penned them there with all the plain to choose? No footsteps leading to that word choose. None out of it, mad druids set to work, their brains no doubt like galley slaves a Turk, pits for his pastime, Christians against Jews. And more than that, a furlong on, why there, what bad use was that engine for, that wheel or brake not wheel, that harrow fit to reel men's bodies out like silk, with all the air of tossing tool, on earth left unaware, brought to sharpen its rusty teeth of steel. Then came some stub ground, once a wood, next to marsh it would seem, now mere earth, desperate and done with, so the fool finds mirth, makes a thing and mars it, till his mood changes and off he goes, within a rude bog clay and marsh, sand and stark black dirt. Now blotches rankling colored gay and grim, now patches where some leanness of the soils broke in moss or substances like boils. Then came a palsy note, a clench in him, a distorted mouth that splits its rim, gaping at death and dies while it recoils. As far as ever from the end, not in the distance, but the evening not, point my footsteps further at the thought. Great black bird, Apollyon's bosom's friend, sailed past and beat his wide wings dragon pen, that brushed my cap perchance the guide I sought. For looking up of where I somehow grew, the plain had given place all round to mountains with such names, the grace mere heights and means, now stolen in view. How best they surprisingly saw the hue, how to get from there was no clear case. Yet half I seemed to recognize some trick of mischief had happened to me, God knows when, in a bad dream perhaps. Here ended then progress this way, when in the very nick of giving up one more time, came a click as when the trap shuts you're in the den. Burningly it came upon me all at once, this was the place, those two hills, crouched like two bulls, locked horn in fight, while to the left a tall scalp mountain, Dunst's daughter, to dozing at the very nonce, after a lifetime of training for the sight. What in the midst lay but the tower itself, the round squat turret, blind as a fool's heart, built of brown stone without a counterpart in the whole world. The tempest mocking elf points to the shipman thus, the unseen shelf. She strikes on only when timbers start. Not see, because of night perhaps, why day came back for that. Behind it left the dying sunset, kindled through a cleft. The hills like two giants in the hunting lay, chin upon hand to see the game at bay, and a stab and then the creature to the heft. Not here, when noise was everywhere it told, increasing like a bell, names in my ears, of lost adventurers my peers, how such was strong and such was bold, and such was fortunate, yet each of old, lost one moment now the woe of years. There they stood, ranged along the hillside met, to view the last of me, a living frame, for one more picture in a sheet of flame. I saw them and knew them all, and yet, dauntless, the slughorn to my lips I set and blew, child Roland to a dark tower came. There they stood, ranged along the hillside met, to view the last of me, a living frame, for one more picture to sheet of flame. I saw them and knew them all, and yet, dauntless, the slughorn I set to my slughorn. There they stood, ranged along the hillside bent, to view the last of me, a living frame, through one more picture, a sheet of flame. I saw them and knew them all, and yet, dauntless a slug going through my lips, I sat and blew, child roll into a dark tower cave. When, in the course of human events, it becomes necessary for one people to dissolve the political bands which have connected them to another, and assume among the powers of the earth the separate and equal stations to which the laws of nature and nature's God entitle them, a separate and equal station to which the laws of nature and nature's God entitle them, a decent respect of the opinions of mankind, requires that they should declare the causes which impel them to the separation. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that all men are created equal, that they're endowed by the Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And to secure these rights, governments instituted among men, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed. Whenever any form of government becomes destructive to these ends, it is their right to alter or abolish it, and institute new government, laying its foundations on such principles, and organizing its powers in such form as to them shall most likely seem to affect their safety and happiness. Prudence indeed will dictate the governments long established should not be changed for light or transient causes. And experience accordingly hath shown that mankind are more disposed to suffer when evils are sufferable than right themselves by abolishing the forms to which they have become accustomed. But when long trained of abuses and usurpations, pursuing invariably the same object, evince the design to reduce them under absolute despotism, it is their right, it is their duty to throw off such government and provide new guards for their future security. Such has been the patient sufferance of these colonies, and such is the necessity which constrains them to alter their former systems of government. The history of the present King of Britain is a history of repeated injuries and usurpations, all having in the direct object the establishment of an absolute tyranny over these states. To prove this, let facts be submitted to a candid world. He has refused assent to laws the most wholesome and necessary for the public good. beauty of woman and a wise heart's words, and men-at-arms in their nobility, the colloquies of love, the songs of her birds, and handsome ships on the fast-running sea, the calmness of air as daybreak looms, and white snow falling on a windless day, a flowing brook, a meadow full of blooms, silver and gold and lapis in array.
No, these are bagels. Bagels, 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 everyone loves bagels. Bagels, bagels, won't you eat our bagels too? Bagels.
I'm boiling them first. This is I just put another batch in my. This is a pot of boiling water here. There's about a half a liter of honey added to the water. We got a batch here that's ready. I'm gonna take it out now. They're okay, a little dark, but oh my God. I need to move this. Lost 3. Pick those up later. Don't want to filth my gloves up.